Well, here we are, season 5, disc 2, episode 205. We've got 4 new episodes. Looks like we've got a 2-parter coming up. 205 Disaster, 206 The Game, 208 Unification Part 1, 207 Unification Part 2. Did they film these out of order? Could someone explain to me why Unification 1 is 208 and Unification 2 is 207? If someone has a chance to explain that to me in the comments, I'd appreciate it, so that when we get there, I can talk about it appropriately. This is the D. Louise book series. This is where we read books, talk about books, no special effects going on here. We do Flashback Mondays. We do Star Trek Fridays, today is Friday. It's a very rainy day. So I can appreciate your likes and subscribes. And if anybody knows why I've done 205 episodes of this, and the first 6 months, this Star Trek was doing really well for me, getting at least 50 to 100 views. The last 8 videos haven't gotten 10. So maybe it's a YouTube thing. They're not pushing it out like they used to. Maybe people stopped watching. I do not know. But it's really hurting my feelings. I was always counting on, although the book reviews are picking up, so that helps. But I haven't even reached 200 subscribers yet, and it's been over a year now. I've heard other people make 1,000 in a year. Some people even do much bigger than that in a month. And I'm sitting here at under 200. What can I say? It is a freezing, rainy day here. So I had to break out the hot chocolate. I am freezing. So I hope you will join me today for Disaster, and then next week for The Game, and then the week after Unification 1 and 2. I am freezing. Oh, sorry. I am just freezing today. All of my co-hosts are asleep because it is a freezing, rainy day. And I've also gotten hit with copyright issues on the last 2 videos. So it's a good thing they allow what they allow, because I don't know how to edit. I just don't. I have no clue. I do need a new computer. My computer is quite old. It'll take about 6 hours to upload this video. So those are my 2, I like doing this. I hope you like me doing this. I plan on going all the way through to the end, into the movies, and then into Voyager. So we'll see what happens. But this is Disaster Season 5, Disc 2, Episode 205. We see a little bit of Ensign Rowe. I would like to point out that there is still, during the credits, and if I get a chance, I'll show it. Excuse me, I've had a terrible sneezing fit this morning. Hold on. We are in Disc 5 of Season 2. And this is the Disaster. And I've got a few things. We start off with a captain's log. Our mission to Muda 5 has been completed, and since our next assignment will not begin for several days, we are enjoying a welcome respite from our duties. So we start the episode in 10 forward, and Kiko and O'Brien are there with Riker and Data, and they're talking about Kiko is with child. So O'Brien says, if it's a boy, Michael after my father. Kiko says, wait a minute, we decided on Hero after my father. O'Brien said, we talked about this last night. And she said, that's right, we decided on Hero. And Riker says, wait, I've got it, William. It's a great name, William O'Brien. It has a nice ring to it. And the kid does somersaults and they go through all that stuff with the baby. And I would like to point out that with the technology, we have the technology today. So maybe they were the kind of parents who didn't want to know the sex of the child and wanted to be surprised. But we do have the technology to determine what the sex of the child is in today's world and in that world. So I don't know why we had to have this discussion, but I guess they wanted a little bit of levity in the beginning of this episode. So we go through the baby stuff. So then we move to the cargo bay, and Dr. Crusher is in there with LaForge, and I'm not exactly sure what they're doing in the beginning, but she is trying to get him to sing. I'm not exactly sure what for, but she does try to convince him to sing a few lines. Okay, so then we're back on the bridge, and Troy is up there going, Captain, I'd like to introduce you to the winners of the primary school science fair. This is Marissa and Jordan and Jay Gordon. And they're here for their tour. And Picard says hello. And Patterson says, can we see the battle bridge? And Picard says no. He goes, we will be visiting the hydroponics and astrophysics labs. And Troy says, I'm sure you'll have a wonderful time. So he guides them over to the turbo lift, and they get in the turbo lift. So then they get in the turbo lift, and Picard says, I want you to know we're very proud of the science fair winners. Perhaps some of you will choose to pursue a career in Starfleet. Well then, what did you do for your science project? Patterson says, I planted radishes in the dirt and they came up all weird. And Picard says, I see. That's very commendable. And you? Jay Gordon says, analysis of lifespan of the swarming moths on Ghana 4. They only live for 20 hours, then they die. And then he goes to talk to the girl, but the turbo lift shifts and shakes, and they're in a little bit of trouble. Okay, so then they show several areas of the ship shaking. They show the cargo bay, they show 10 forward, they show the turbo lift, they show the bridge shaking, all these different areas shaking. Then we come back to the bridge, and Monroe, now I've pointed out before that only the females that have occupied those two front seats get names. If there's ever two males, nobody has a name. But if there's a female in the chair, she has a name. It's been a consistent thing through the episodes that I've noticed that not only do they get to be seen on screen, they also get lines and they also get a name. So it's none of them. One guy made a face once. One guy died once, but I don't think they had names. I could be wrong, but all the females that have sat up front have had, if they have had speaking lines, they have had names. Otherwise, they're all addressed as ensign. So this particular lady, female sitting up front, her name is Monroe. And apparently she's the highest ranking officer on the bridge at this time. She says, what happened? And the guy at helms, who actually has a name this episode, Mandel, sensors are picking up subspace distortions and high energy particles directly to starboard. Monroe says, looks like we ran into quantum filament damage report. O'Brien says we lost primary life support, switching to secondary systems. Impulse and WORF engines are offline. Vandell says there's another filament moving toward us, sir. And she goes off every single video. Every single video, regardless of the time of day I do the videos, she goes off. Bing, 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 bing. So it's 8 o'clock. Not really. Not really. So where were we? So they get hit again and they bounce around again, and she dies. So not only does she have a name, she has lines, but she dies. She's an extra, she dies. And her body disappears from the set. So I don't know what they did, but since they can't leave the bridge and they're stuck on the bridge, after she's reported dead and we come back there, she's still not lying there. So maybe they took her over to the side, but her body disappears. I would also like to point out that Wesley Crusher left after the first 3 episodes of season 4. We are now in season 5. We are on disc 2. We are in episode 205. The space after Brent Spinner's name is still vacant. Are we leaving this open so when Wesley Crusher does make his appearance at Starfleet Academy, getting in trouble, we're saving the space? Because there's no other name here. There's a blank space. It's still open. I just thought I'd point that out. And I just wanted to point out, there she is, the dead body that disappears. Just saying. So they've got all this trouble. They know they're in trouble. So we're in the turbo lift, and Picard's ankle is broken, and the kids are good. So Picard tries to contact the bridge. There's no response. They ask why the bridge doesn't answer. Picard says, I don't know. The little kid says they're all dead, and he panics. Picard says they're not dead. They're not dead. Communication is just down. He also goes, we're all gonna die. And Picard says, we are certainly not. Now listen to me, no one here is going to die. The bridge will be sending a rescue party as soon as possible, so I want you all to stop crying. And they go, ah! More. I just thought I'd point that out. So then we're back on the bridge, and I would like to point out that they want to be dramatic. They want to, show what's going on. But it would be nice if we could see what was going on. Just because you want it dark and atmospheric, those of us with eye issues can't see very well. They always do. Some of these shows, like, horror flicks, everything's in the dark. So you're trying to scare us, but we can't see anything. If the actor is acting dramatically or acting scared, but they're in the dark, who cares? We can't see them. So O'Brien is on the thing, and he's sending out maydays. This is the Federation Starship Enterprise calling any vessel within range. We are in distress and need assistance. Please respond. And he sends it on automated. And Ensign Rowe is there, and she's like, what the hell happened? O'Brien says, we were hit by a quantum filament. Most of our systems are down. and we haven't been able to contact anyone off the bridge. So where did Ro come from, by the way? Does anybody know where she came from? Was she just sitting there someplace? Did we not see her the first time around? Where was she? We saw the lady that got dead. We saw the other ensign guy, and we saw Troy and O'Brien. So where did Ro come from? She just materialized in the middle of the sling, and she's just there to put jabs, little jabby jabs. Going, I don't think this, and I don't think that. You should do this. Sorry. That was so bad. So he sends a message on thing, and then he says, we were hit by a quantum filament. Most of our systems is down, and we haven't been able to contact anyone off the bridge. Rose says, well, don't count on leaving through there. An emergency bulkhead just closed beneath that lift. O'Brien says, confinement mode. Right, isolation protocol. I'm not really familiar with that protocol. O'Brien says, if the computer senses a hull breach, it automatically closes emergency bulkheads to isolate the breach. Until we can clear those bulkheads, we will be cut off from the rest of the ship. Mandel says, and partial sensors back online. I have picked up sporadic life signs throughout the saucer session. There are definitely survivors. O'Brien says, what about 10 forward? And Rose says, 10 forward? Why are you concerned about 10 forward, the social area? Well, his wife's there, you person. And he's worried about his wife. He's allowed to be worried about his wife who's pregnant and about to give birth at any second. Mendel says, I'm sorry, Chief. The readings are not that specific. Can you scan the drive section? I'm not reading any life signs in the drive section. Could the sensors be malfunctioning? Mendel says there's no way to know without the main computer. I can't run full diagnostics. Can you sense anything, Counselor? Joyce says there are a lot of people still alive. Many of them are hurt, but I can't tell where they are. Rose says we need to start emergency procedures. Who's the duty officer? O'Brien says Lieutenant Moreau was in command, but she's dead. I believe Counselor Troy is the senior officer on deck. Rose says, Counselor Troy? And he has to explain to her that she carries the rank of Lieutenant Commander. And Troy says, I'd appreciate any suggestions. O'Brien says, we initiate emergency procedure Alpha 2. Bypass computer control and place all systems on manual override. And my co-host is walking around here. He goes, aye, very well. Rose says, may I suggest that our next priority be to stabilize life support and to try and reestablish internship communication. She says, yes, Mr. Mandel, I'd like you to assist Ensign Rupp. He says, yes, sir. So then we go to 10 forward. Okay. So WORF, RIKER, and Data are in 10 forward with Kiko. And WORF is checking on people, the injured. And other people are checking on the injured. And then RIKER is checking with Kiko. And he says, how do you feel? She says, a little foggy. He goes, just lie still for a while. We'll get you to sick bay as soon as we can. She's like, okay. Riker's like, report. Again, I know they're trying to be dramatic, but I can't see. Could you turn the lights on? So anyways. Data says, I've surveyed all the turbo lifts and service crawlways on this deck. Access to the bridge has been completely severed by emergency bulkheads. WORF says, sickbay. Heavy damage to section 23A has cut off access to sickbay. I have ordered a security team to bring casualties here until further notice. Riker says, I think we should assume the worst, that everyone on the bridge is dead. There's no one in control of the ship. Data says, in that circumstance, reestablishing control should be our top priority. Riker says, agreed. Can we get to engineering? Data says, no. The most direct route is blocked. I believe we can use a starboard service crawlway. Riker says, okay, you and I will try to get there. Mr. Worf, this room is going to fill with wounded in a few minutes. and they're going to need help. I want you to stay in charge here. Yes, sir. And they leave. And it's just, I guess they wanted to put their most fiercest character, their most bravest character, their most stern warrior character in sickbay to show his gentle side. I'm just saying. Okay, so then we're back in the cargo bay, and they got the lights on so we can see. So LaForge is playing with the panels, and he's like, clear the power shunt. The shunt is cleared, right? Bypass the power flow, and they can't get the doors to open. And he's like, can we force them open? And she says, yes, we can try. There's an emergency hand actuator, and she's playing with it. She leans up against the wall, and she says, this wall's hard. And he said, one of the emergency conduits must have ruptured, and it's on fire. And then they're trying to move they've got to move the big orange containers away from the fire, because if they catch on fire, the ship will explode. Okay, I screwed up again. Okay, there's the fire, just to show you. I screwed up again. Okay, so then we're back in the turbo lift, and Marissa is helping Picard try to open the panel. And he said the external power is cut off. And Jay Godin says, we're gonna die. And so they keep trying to work the thing, and it doesn't work. So in order to calm everybody down, since Marissa is the oldest, he appoints her his first officer. And he says, your new name is number 1. And then he gives her 2 of his pins. And then he tells her that we need a crew. And he appoints Jay as the science officer, and Patterson will be the officer in charge of radishes, because that was his project on the science thing. And he gives the kid his other pin. I guess it's supposed to be a cute little scene, because Picard's supposed to be uncomfortable with kids, and he does face this one more time. There is another thing with kids in a future episode. Okay, so then again, it would be nice if we were able to see the characters, if they had proper lighting. But this is supposed to be a disastrous situation. But it would be nice if we could see the characters. So Riker and Data are crawling along in the turbo lift, and apparently there's a cooling leak, and some bulkheads close behind them, closing them in. Dr. Crusher says, because we're back in the cargo bay, we can withstand this level of radiation for another 3 or 4 hours without any permanent damage. We'll need a few days of hyaluronium treatment. LaForge says, what are the radiation levels in the quantum? And she says they're 83 rads and rising at about 4 rads per minute. LaForge says if this stuff gets unstable at 350, then the whole ship is going to blow. So then they spend a whole lot of time moving these containers across the room. So then we're back on the bridge again. O'Brien says there that just before the second time we were hit, see the subspace distortion. Troy says yes. How big is a quantum filament? O'Brien says it can be hundreds of meters long, but it has almost no mass, which makes it very difficult to detect. So, like a cosmic string. O'Brien says no, that's completely different phenomenon. O'Brien says, how did you do that? A station comes online, and Rose says I diverted power from the phaser array and dumped it into engineering control. And O'Brien's like, you what? And Rose says, engineering station online counselor. O'Brien says, but that's a completely improper procedure. You can't just dump that raw energy into a bridge terminal without blowing. Rose says, we're not going to get much out of this by playing it safe. You're in an emergency situation. You might have to break protocol to save lives. Yes, I was following the rules, but they all died. Well, I was following the rules. What is our engine status, Ensign? Rose says, we've got half impulse power available, but I'm getting some odd readings from the warp drive. I'm reading the spike in the warp field array. It looks like a containment deviation. O'Brien says, switch to bypass. O'Brien says, nothing. Field strength at 40 and falling. We've got a problem. The quantum resonance of the filament caused a polarity shift in the antimatter containment field. O'Brien says, when the filament hit us, the ship was momentarily charged, as if it come into contact with a live electrical wire. Rose says that weakened the containment field surrounding the antimatter pods. The field strength is at 40% and is still falling. O'Brien says if it falls to 15%, the field will collapse and we will have a containment breach. And Troy says, and that means? And Rose says, the ship will explode. Like, So then we're back in the Jeffries tube with Data and Riker. Data says, Commander, the current cannot be off down from this relay. Riker says, we can't just sit here. Data says, if the energy flowing through that arc we interrupted by non-conductive metal, it is likely the circuit would be broken. Riker says, I don't see any material in here that could handle that much current. Data says, Commander, much of my body frame is made up of tripolymers, a non-conducive material. Riker says, are you suggesting we use your own body? Data's like, yes. Riker says, Data, there are 500,000 amps flowing through that arc. Could your body handle that much current? Data says, the power surge would cause a system failure in my internal processors and melt my primary power coupling. However, there is a chance that the damage would not be irreparable. Riker says, no. Data says, Commander, our options are limited. Riker says, first of all, android or not, I wouldn't ask anyone to take that kind of risk. Second, if the computer is not working in engineering, I'm going to need your help to get control of the ship. Data says, my positronic brain has several layers of shielding to protect me from power surges. It would be possible for you to remove my cranial unit and take it with you. And Riker says, you're asking me to remove your head? You want me to take your head off? And Data's like, yeah. Like, yo. And then, I'm sorry, I expected, it didn't happen, but I expected Riker to be walking around carrying Data by his hair like a lantern, but it didn't happen. But I had that vision when I heard them discussing this of Riker carrying Data's head, having him hold him up here, walking around the corridors with Data's head on him. But no, that didn't happen. And there she goes again. Okay. So Data makes the ultimate sacrifice and goes down, and Riker takes his head off. So then we're in the turbo lift again, and they get the cargo tube thing, ceiling thing open, and he sends one of the kids up there, and he has the kid look around, and apparently one of the big clamps is broken. And so Picard explains to the kids that those big clamps are part of the emergency system. If anything goes wrong, they're designed to hold the turbo lift in place, but it would seem that they are damaged. Marissa says, that's why we're falling. Picard says, yes. Now, when they give way, we shall fall, so we've got to get your crew out of here before that happens. Now, there's a ladder along the wall of the shaft. You can climb up that until you come to an open doorway. Marissa says, what about you? He says, my ankle's broken. I will just slow you down when you need to move quickly. Now you are the leader, and that's an order. Marissa says, we have to climb up the shaft. Patterson says, I want to stay with the captain. Picard says, Patterson, you are an officer. You have to obey orders. Patterson says, I don't want to be an officer anymore. I want to stay with you. Jay Gordon says, the captain is here. We won't make it. We will die. Come here, come here, come here, come here, come here. Come on, co-host. Help me read. Yes, co-host. Yes, the kids are in trouble. Are we worried about the kids? They're with the captain, though. You can keep me warm. I am freezing. You are so toasty woasty. It's raining outside. Yes, it is. It is raining. I am cold. Should we get under the electric blanket and get warm and toasty and watch some more Star Trek? You want to do that? No? So the kids cry again and put on this thing. So they decide that they're all going to go together. Just they're going to go slowly. So now that they moved all this stuff, Geordi's like, Crusher's like, the levels are still rising. There must be some way to put the fire up. LaForge says the energy is being fed by the ship's internal power grid, and we can't even get near them. The only way to stop it would be to eliminate its supply of oxygen. Wait a minute, Doctor, I've got it. It's an kind of or wild, but we might just be able to kill two birds with one stone. Crusher says, let's hear it. Okay, we open up the external door that would depressurize the cargo bay and suck out all of those containers out into space. At the same time, the lack of oxygen should put out the plasma fire. Crusher says, well, what about us? Geordi says, we just need something to hang on. So they go over to the ladder, and they're going to hang on to the ladder. So then we go back to 10 forward, and apparently Worf is tending all the sick. Like we said, the brave Klingon soldier he is providing compassionate attention to the sick and wounded. And then it turns out that Kiko is in labor. And Worf tells her, you cannot. This is not a good time, Kiko. Kiko says, it's not open for debate. Like it or not, this baby is coming. So then we're in the observation lounge with TROI, O'Brien, and Ensign Rome. And O'Brien says, if the containment field strength continues to drop at this present rate, we will have at least 2 hours before it becomes critical. Rose says, but you're ignoring the fact that the power coupling is also damaged. If the coupling overheats, the field strength could drop a lot faster. We could have a containment breach in a matter of minutes. TROI says, what do you suggest? Rose says, we could separate the saucer now and put as much distance as possible between us and the drive section. O'Brien says, excuse me? That is damn cold-blooded. What about the people down there? Rose says, there's no evidence that anyone is still alive in the drive section. O'Brien says, no evidence they're dead either. If you were trapped there, would you like us to just cut you loose and leave? Rose says, no, of course not. But I also wouldn't expect the bridge crew to risk the safety of the ship and hundreds of lives in a futile effort to rescue me. TROI said, you said there was no way to stabilize the containment field from the bridge. Could it be done from engineering? O'Brien says, yes, but my readings indicate there's no power down there. They don't even have monitors to tell them there's a problem. TROI said, could we divert energy from the bridge to those monitors? O'Brien says, yes. Rose says, I'll say it again. There's no reason to believe that anyone is alive in engineering. We're wasting time even talking about this. We have to separate the ship now. TROI says, I believe that there are still people alive down there, and I'm going to give them every chance. Assuming they're alive, they'll be hoping there's someone up here who can help them. So we'll help them. Chief, divert the necessary power to engineering. O'Brien says, aye, sir. And Rose says, remind you, Captain. The power coupling could overheat at any moment. By not separating the ship, you may be responsible for a whole bunch of deaths. She's picking on poor Troy. Troy can feel the people alive. So we're back in the turbo lift again, and the top of the turbo lift falls. So the turbo lift is gone, and they're just sitting there hanging on to the stairs, the ladder. So they keep trying every time they reach a level, they keep trying the door, and it's not working, and they keep going up, and the kids are panicking. So they start singing Picard's favorite song, Frere Jacques Dovezu, Solas Matinos, ding ding dong. I can't sing, hold a tune for nothing. So then we're back in 10 forward. Worf says your contractions are now 30 seconds apart. Dilation has gone to 7 meters since the onset of labor. That did not take long. Kiko says, easy for you to say. Worf says, you are doing very well. I'm sure the child will arrive soon. Kiko says, Worf, has the baby turned? And Worf goes, turned? Kiko says, so the head is down. Dr. Crusher told me a few days ago that it hadn't. She wasn't worried because I still had him months ago. Worf says, I am not certain. Can't shoot down. Kiko says, Worf, have you ever done this before, delivered a baby? Worf says, yes, no. I've taken the Starfleet Emergency Medical Course in computerized simulation. I assisted in the delivery of a human baby. Kiko says, sometimes stuff doesn't go according to the book, Worf. So then we're back in the cargo bay, and Crusher is explaining to Geordi that once the air is vented, the first thing you'll feel is extreme pressure in your lungs. You have to resist the temptation to exhale. Next, our hands and feet will get cold, then numb, and some of the capillaries on the exposed sections of our skin may burst. The Forge says, sounds like fun. Crusher says, we will have 15 seconds of useful consciousness, then about 10 seconds of extreme disorientation before we pass out. The Forge says, once the air is evacuated, one of us is going to need to get to that panel to repressurize the bay. So they do that, and it works. Okay, so we're back on the bridge. And like I said, the body of our dead ensign or lieutenant is missing. So Rowe says the field strength is down to 20%. We cannot run the risk of staying here any longer. O'Brien says we're in no danger until it drops below 15. We can afford to wait and see if anyone in engineering notices those monitors. Troy says, have you made preparations to separate the saucer section? Rowe says, yes, sir, we're in standby mode for docking latches. O'Brien says there's a thermal invasion in the power coupling. Rowe says, quick, cross-connect to the transfer coil. That was close. What happened? Rose says, exactly what I said was going to happen. The power coupling overheated and the entire containment field almost collapsed. So I was right and you wrong. O'Brien's fixed it temporarily, but this could happen again at any moment, and next time we might not be able to stop it. You can't let wishful thinking guide your decision, Counselor. It's time to leave. Troy says, we will separate the ship when I decide that it's time and not before. Is that perfectly clear, Ensign? And she says yes, and then she goes and sits down in the chair. And there she goes again. Bing, bing. So Riker and Data have made it down to the bridge, and there's Data's head. And he's got Data hooked up to the computers. He's got his brain wired to the computers. So he established a connection. He opens the door. Riker says there's no power on the entire deck, yet somehow these monitors are working. Data says the power reaching those monitors has been diverted from the bridge, sir. Riker says, but why? Unless there's something they want us to see. Wait a minute, Data. The containment field strength is down to 8%. Can you stabilize it? No, sir. I do not have access to the containment field. You will have to establish a new link. And then he has to do all this stuff with Data's head. And he hits a nerve or something like that. And so Data's like this. And Data's like, that's the wrong link. And Picard said, Data says, you must hurry, so the containment field has dropped to 16%. I'm trying. You need a bigger head. The Data says the field continues to drop, so collapse is imminent. And then he says, try it now. And Data establishes the connection and he fixes it. A little moment of tense anticipation, suspense, I guess. Okay. So then we're back on the bridge. And O'Brien says the field strength is stabilizing 18%, 20, 25%. I guess they got our message. I was wrong, Cancer. Troy said you could have easily been right. And then we go to the kids section. They show us the kids in the turbo lift, and the turbo lift door opens and they climb onto land, or a floor, should I say. And then, so then Kiko is at the end of her labor, and she gets the kid out, and Worf holds up the thing. He's like, I shall now cut the umbilical cord, and he cuts the umbilical cord with the laser thingy. And it's they show it all. You can watch the show and watch it if you want to see all the gory details. So she has the baby. It comes out head first. There's no problems with that. And then everything is fixed. The whole thing is solved. We don't see what happens after that. The whole thing is just automatically 100% fixed. The ship is back together. That's it. That little few minutes, hours, that's it. And all of a sudden, everything's all fixed. Okay, I'm just going to do this a little bit again because I'm not sure if I clicked the thing and I'm not sure if this recorded, and I hate when I do this. I hate when I have these moments during these videos. But we go back to 10 forward, and Kiko delivers the baby, and Mr. Macho Klingon there, and he gets the baby out, and they show the whole stuff. You can watch the video if you want to see that part. The first time I did this was much better. He gets the little thingy, and he's like, I shall now cut the umbilical cord, and he lasers it off, and then he asks for a blanket, and he hands the baby girl to Kiko after all the time of worrying about boys' names. And then everything is miraculously fixed. There's no other stuff going on. Everything is solved. It's all over. The ship is repaired. Picard's ankle's been fixed. Everything's all fixed nice and tidy. So then we come back to the bridge, and Troy leads the kids up, and they talk to the captain. Troy says, Riker says to Troy, you just can't stay away from the big chair, can you? Troy says, I don't think I'm cut out to be captain. First officer, maybe. I understand there aren't many qualifications. And Riker gives her a smirk. And Picard enters. Hello, it's good to see you again. What brings you to the bridge? And Marissa says, in appreciation for the way you helped us get out of the turbo shaft and the way you helped us not be scared, we want to present you with this commemorative plaque. Give it to him. So the little kid gives him the plaque. And it reads, to Captain Picard, in appreciation for the way you helped us get out of the turbo shaft and the way you helped us not to be scared. Jordan Grass, Patterson Supra, and Marissa Flores. And Picard says, thank you very much. I made the back piece. He turns it over. It's got holes in it to hang it up. And Picard says, you did a wonderful job. Well, later this afternoon, we're going to finish the tour, I promise you. And we'll be starting with the battle bridge. I'll see you at 1400. And Picard says, bye, number one. And Marissa and Riker say, aye, sir. It's cute. So, there you have it. Disaster, episode 205, Disc 2, Season 5. So I hope you will tune in. Oops, I went the wrong way. Shoot. Ah, shoot. Okay, let me try this one more time. There we go. So we just finished 205. Next week we'll do 206. Then we'll do 208 and 207. And maybe someone can explain to me in the comments why 208 is part one and 207 is part two. It would be so. Did they film the ending before they filmed the beginning? Did they film backwards? So, what did you think of Ensign Rose's primary role in this? What did you think of Worf delivering a baby? Mr. Powerful Klingon delivering a baby. It was good stuff. It was a good episode. It went by very quickly. So I hope you enjoyed it. Please hit the like and subscribe. I do not what's going on with my analytics here. They're in the tank. But if you could please hit the like and subscribe, I'd most appreciate it. Please check out Flashback Monday. Romantic Times Book Review Magazine is still as relevant today as it was 20 years ago. You can still find good authors to read. Those books are still available today. You can still find good series and Star Trek Fridays. And don't forget to watch If N later this afternoon. We got some good stuff coming up. So please hit the like and subscribe. Thank you so much for tuning in. Most appreciative.